Good night, pal.
Aye.
What's happening? Looking pretty sexy today, and you're looking a bit lumber sexual with that shirt on.
Thank
I
you.
like it.
It's I don't usually wear flannels, but today I decided to go a bit rustic for you. Although you've got the beard and I've got the shirt.
I know, mate. You've gone all clean shaven.
I have.
What's going on?
I know. It's a flannel countdown. Da-da-da-da.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
There you
I
go.
don't know if I'm going to keep the beard though, dude. On that point, like I don't know how you feel about beards. I quite like them, especially since we're getting to that middle age. It kind of hides things on your face, but it's also itchy as fuck.
I know. Bear your way through it. For those of you that have gone through this, you'll know. But like a good beard oil changes all of that, Mitch. I'll send you a couple of links after this.
Do you know? I've got beard oil, mate. I just forget to use it.
Speak to Sam Simmons. He's a man with a well curated and long running beard.
He's always had a beard, hasn't he?
His beard's older than he is. He was born with the beard. He came out post womb full beard.
Let's chat Sherry Nicholas. For those that are listening, you haven't tuned into the wrong podcast here. We will be chatting about whiskey, but we're going to chat around how it's influenced by sherry or the other way around, and how this sherry aspect of whiskey, I suppose, has played a huge part within the whiskey industry. We're going to be dropping in a few interviews. You guys have probably heard, if you listen to the show a lot, about me go on so much about the run-up for me going to Jerez, coming back from Jerez, the adventures I had in Jerez. So from that, we actually got some really cool content that we want to share with you guys. We did some nice interviews over there. But anyway, my friend, as always, I'm joined by the spectacular Mr. Palaki. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, but I'm a bit embarrassed, Mitch. I've absolutely misunderstood the topic of today. I thought the whole thing was about to be about my favourite songs from Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. So that's what I spent my time researching for this episode. When you're like, we're going to cover Sherry.
That's so bad, man. That's so bad.
We're not even at the joke section. Can't fucking wait for that. Yeah, I'm excited. So I have, obviously, like yourself, Mitch, worked for some amazing brands who are heavily involved in the sherry industry, to be quite frank. So Edrington Group, who I, cut my teeth with in many, many ways, understanding sherry cask, spending time out in Jerez. But those guys have now, they bought a sherry house in order to kind of create, what's it called? Vertical integration, I do believe is the technical term. But how do they kind of control the wines that are going to season the barrels that they're then going to use for the whiskies? And this is pretty cool stuff. So you're starting to see Scotch whisky houses really take a hands-on approach to not just having partnerships within the sherry industry, but then obviously then taking ownership. That's the same for Dalmore. Like the ownership of Dalmore also own many of the sherry houses in which they use. And obviously these are two massive sherry bomb style whiskies, between Macallan and Dalmore. So these two industries are hand in glove. And in fact, without the sherry industry, you wouldn't see a lot of the Scotch whisky brands that are out there today. And now, because of the flux between when sherry was at one point one of the number one consumed beverages in the United Kingdom, now obviously Scotch whisky is that predominant partner. Now the sherry houses rely on the Scotch whisky industry in order to create a lot of these wines. So it's this. I'm really excited about hearing from the people that you've spoken to, who are great friends and people I've worked with over the years, but just vastly knowledgeable people. We should also preface this as we will do some top line stuff on this. We're not going to get super geeky. We could create our own podcast on sherry if we wanted, but we'll try and keep it as kind of top line as possible so that you don't fall asleep, right?
Absolutely, mate. Which normally happens when you're on the show. So
100%. Yeah. I'm back with a vengeance. The cold has gone and the Snorefest can continue. So there you go.
But I think when we talk about, it's interesting that you talk about the UK being the biggest market for sherry, right, outside of Spain. And I was looking into these figures, and it's not far off. And I started digging into why that was the case, and the story behind this actually goes back to 1587. So, to explain this, we have to obviously go to the sunny shores of Spain. And Sir Francis Drake, kind of notorious, I suppose, for his exploits, he decides to pay a visit to the port of Cadiz. And while he's there, a little bit of a ballsy character, he sets the Spanish Armada fleet ablaze. Legend has it that he even managed to singe the king's beard in the process. But the other thing he does, mate, he basically steals almost 3,000 butts of sherry in the process. So pretty ballsy guy, right? Takes them back to England as his prized trophies. Now, why is that significant? Well, because of what we just thought about. We think this kind of kick-started Britain's love affair with sherry, making us what we are today, which is the biggest international market for sherry, which is pretty crazy. So then we kind of fast forward, I suppose, where we come in within Scotch whisky. Obviously, at this time, we've got no idea that casks and wood maturation is going to be such a big influencer on the flavour of Scotch whisky. That really doesn't come along till the 18th century. At this point, Britain's sherry consumption is through the roof. And we're getting all these sherry casks into Scotland. It's getting emptied out. What are we going to do with them? We're tight over here. We chuck some whiskey into it and see what happens. And this is where we find out that it soaks up all these, it gives it these kind of rich, nutty, sweet flavours. It really rounds it off. It makes it tannic. It makes it really long in the finish. And that's where this kind of relationship starts with regards to Scotch whisky and sherry casks. And it still is there today. Now, arguably, you look at the 1940s, we have this new relationship that starts with the US using ex-bourbon, ex-rye casks. And that's kind of when things change a little bit towards the US as opposed to Spain and Europe with regards to the sherry casks. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell, why we are where we are today with regards to sherry and sherry within the Scotch whisky industry.
Yeah, it's a colourful background. And just for those of you who've never had sherry before, one, go and drink it. First and foremost, it's not particularly expensive in the grand scale of things, and the flavours that are out there are fantastic. Mitch is going to do a kind of walkthrough about some of the different variants on these wines, but for all intents and purposes, sherry is a fortified wine, in its simplest terms, right? So basically, what does that mean? So, and Mitch will talk about how some of these wines are put together, but for this segment, it's basically the fortification process of this is about adding grape alcohol to lift the ABV up. So you're not drinking wines at 10, 12, 13, 14% ABV. They've been fortified with grape alcohol to lift that ABV up, usually sit between 15, 16, 70% ABV.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. So and when it comes down to sherry, what are you drinking?
I have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to my sherry collection at home. I actually almost always have a variety of different things, from really old VORS Olorosos, which I'm very fortunate to pick up every now and again when I head into New York City, and there's a few stores that specialise in this. You actually get the best selection of sherries in the UK. And if you're not outside of Jerez, the best selections that you will ever get are actually in the UK. The selections in the USA are a little bit more limited, so you need to find some specialist stores. But from an everyday standpoint, I almost always have a bottle of Amontillado in my refrigerator. So basically, Amontillado is a Fino, which has been, biologically matured. So it forms the floor, which creates the yeast floor, which stops the wine being oxygenated. So it's basically like an old matured white wine, and then at some point the something changes. And there's a lot of what I love about Amontillado is that it varies depending on the winemaker, but basically at some point the floor breaks, and the floor basically dissipates out, and it allows the wine to start to become oxygenated. And this oxygenation starts to darken down the liquid, and then you start to get this interaction between the wine and the wood, and it starts to almost become this little hybrid between Fino and Oloroso. And that's what I love Amontillado. It's still got some of those kind of bright sea spray notes that you get with Fino wines, and those kind of almost nutty characteristics and the caramel notes that you were talking about that you see coming through from from the whiskey aspect, you get that in the sherry wines first of all. So it's pretty fun. So that's what I like to drink.
So you're kind of greedy when it comes to sherry.
I am
the best of both worlds.
Honestly,
flavor and that dryness.
But I love them, and they're not like Amontillados are not expensive. Like you can spend $20 and get a really good Amontillado. Like you spend way less than that if you want. But you know, there's not many things where you can say this has been, you know, matured and spent, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in a sherry bodega, like being mastered. Like there's very few things like that. So that's, you know, I think it's great value.
So, mate, what I did when I came back from Jerez, we wrote a blog about our travels, so you guys can check it out at coppercairn.com. Blatant plug there that I thought I'd put in. But one of the things that I wrote in the blog, and I was thinking, like, how do I translate the whole sherry speak for someone who drinks Scotch whiskies and has never tried sherry before. So I'm going to kind of read out what I wrote on the blog here. You know, to start off with, let's chat about Fino, right? Reminiscent of a very kind of light, delicate single malt Scotch whiskies. You know, Fino is very dry, pale, light profile. You get these nutty sort of undertones with it. I think it's the one that you're always going to see chilled. I mean, personally for me, I like all my sherry chilled, just like
me
you
too.
say, bang it in the fridge. And then my favourite is Manzanilla, which, you know, you can only find down at San Luca, which we went down to and we're going to get onto in this episode. But I don't know, like I really like this kind of saltiness within my whiskies, within my food. I suppose I've always been that way. You know, I like olives, I like Campbelltown whiskies, Ben Romack, all that kind of style. So if you like that style, then that's the kind of style of sherry that you're probably going to appreciate. It kind of boasts this briny character, really good with seafood, with olives, with anything like that.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, Mitch. So Fino sherries, and obviously this is all Palomino grape, for those of you out there that are geeking out in this, but basically Fino is the driest white wine in the world. Manzanilla is exactly the same thing, but because it's not matured in Jerez de la Frontera, it's matured in San Lucar de Barrameda, and because the bodegas are right on the waterfront, they basically, and they're there for hundreds of years. Like you were telling me just before we went live on this, that you were, you know, you can drink wines that are 150, 250 years old. The barrels are sitting there drinking that sea salt air for that length of time in the Soleras, and it's just super cool, right?
And it's amazing. They talk about that when you go around these bodegas there. Something that obviously we don't talk about in Scotland when you go into a warehouse and they talk about being on the coast and the sea spray coming in and affecting the casks. You know, most distilleries don't do that anymore. Some did in the past. But that's definitely something that they talk about down in San Luca, which is right on the coast, so they're getting that coming through on the cask. Parla Cartardo, the next one, kind of a rarity within the sherry world, very hard to find, but this is, I suppose, it's like a cross between Fino and Amontillado. It's kind of like discovering the hidden gem within your whiskey expression, so a very, very hard one to find. Oloroso,
Wait,
bold.
did Paolo Cortado not sing that song New Shoes?
No, stop it.
Was that Paolo Nutini?
Stop it. You're almost on a yellow card now. You had a booking for the first one. That's almost a yellow card.
You're missing recording solo, aren't you?
But then we got Oloroso, right? Bold, unapologetic. Oloroso sherries, they kind of skip the subtleties, deliver intense flavours. We got nuts, fruit, toffee, kind of reminiscent of the rich sort of complexity mature Scotch whiskies have been exposed to these casks. I mean, we're probably seeing more Oloroso sherry casks used now within the whiskey industry than any other, maybe arguably Pedro Jimenez, which brings us on to the final sherry that we're going to look at. Pedro Jimenez, really one for those with a sweet tooth. This is an indulgent sherry. It's big, it's viscous, it's oily, it's got a huge sweetness to it, raisins, caramel. Whenever you're doing a sherry tasting, this is kind of the last one that you're going to try because it's just so bold and sweet and full on. You know, we were having a load of sherry dinners and it was always the last one that came out with the dessert at the end. So for me, you know, I'd relate this to a whiskey that's really been aged in 100% sherry maturation, just big. full-bodied, a lot going on.
Outside of that, you then get into the world of blended sherries, where you get cream sherries and kind of semi-sweet sherries and sweetened sherries as well. So it's an amazing world with it's got as many flavors and styles as you would find within the whiskey world.
Let's hear from someone that knows a little bit more about sherry than us. Now, I was fortunate enough when I went to Jerez, we had a private tasting with one of the oenologist and the cask manager for Gonzalez Bias, an amazing guy called Salvador. I'm not going to try and say his second name. He says it in the interview. I will butcher it. Salvador, I don't want to do that to your second name. So I'll let this interview play, but great guy. Salvador took us round Gonzalez Bias for around about 2 hours. We sat down and we did this interview afterwards.
So I'm Salvador Chirino Robledo. I'm from Cadiz, and so my role here at Gonzalez Bias is enologist and also cask manager.
Welcome to the show, Salvador.
Thank you.
Amazing tour that you just took us on around Gonzalez Bias. Thank you so much for that. It was an absolute pleasure. So as the main winemaker, cask manager at Gonzalez Bias, your role's quite different and quite unique from anyone we've had on the show before. Mm-hmm. So, we've had master blenders on the show before, we've had whiskey makers from the Scottish whisky industry, but we've never had anyone from the sherry industry.
Yeah.
So, well done for popping our cherry there.
Thank you. I'm glad to be the first here from the sherry field. I'm the one dealing with the clients and dealing with the daily work here in terms of cask seasoning, cask sellings, and also providing casks to the company for our own soleras and criaderas. So
what is it? I mean, a day-to-day, I imagine you don't have a usual day-to-day job, but roughly, so what does that entail?
I'm glad you asked that because my friends ask me the same and I don't have a clear answer. But what I do here is mainly I read my emails, I answer to the clients, I provide the information they request in terms of casks with a technical specification and trying to give a personal treatment to each of them and trying to improve their projects in the best way we can. And also I had to plan the daily work with the other winemakers, how we make batches of wine for the seasoning, how we treat the wines in terms of quality, checking them every day, and make planification with the clients, bringing new barrels and loading them to their final destinations somewhere else in the world. So it's pretty much that. But
just a small job then.
A small job. You're right. And also I participate in the winemaking process also because we never forget we are a winery, so our main task here is to make wine, sherry wine, so we need to be taking care of them every day. So our phenos, analyzing them, tasting them from the cask, it's a huge job, but we're a team and we split the job. So.
And I want to come back to the cask aspect of your job because I think that's, people are really going to want to hear about that aspect of it and how it relates to Scotch whisky. And obviously we have this synergy, which we've had for a long time. But let's chat about Gonzalez Bias. It's got such a rich history. You just took us round this amazing site here. And some of the things, that we saw were just absolutely incredible. Can you paint us a picture of the company's sort of origins quickly? And I think as well, it's had a profound influence on shaping the sherry industry right here. It's the biggest selling. It's in the middle of Jerez. It's like this little oasis in the middle of Jerez when you go around it. So can you give us a little rundown on the history of this place that we're in?
Yeah, as you saw, we work in a museum. So this is nearly 200 years old, but fully operative. We produce our wines and we age here. So we are 100% Spanish company from Jerez, and the core is here. And so about your question, the company started nearly 200 years ago in 1835. It was founded by Manuel Maria González. He was a businessman. He wasn't into the wine business, but he had a clear idea on his mind to make a good quality sherry wine. So he asked for advice. So he made alliances with some other businessmen, and then he asked for advice to his uncle. Uncle is Tío in Spanish, and his name was Pepe, so it's Tío Pepe. It's our main brand, or Fino, and as you said, we gave shape to the appellation because it's the most international sherry wine known all around the world is Tío Pepe, so it's a part of the culture, a part of the culture of Spain. Tío Pepe driving through the country next to the roads, the big signs, and you see it in Madrid, in Seoul. You see the big sign, Tío Pepe González Vallas. So it's not just a great product, it's also a part of the Jerez culture. And we spread the word, we try to give what we have, the best we have, to the rest of the world. And that's a beautiful thing. And as I said, it started, the company name was González and Dubosc because it wasn't González Vallas, but later in 1863, he had a relation with the exporter that he had in the UK, and they renamed, when the other partner passed away, they renamed the name of the company, so it was González Vallas. Belonged to these two families. But in the 80s of the last century, the González family bought their part. So now it's 100% family business, Spanish family business, run by the 5th generation. And the
Amazing.
6th is coming. So we're proud of it.
And you feel that going around. I mean, you go to a lot of distilleries. Well, I go to a lot of distilleries in Scotland, and you see that heritage there. But here it's next level. I mean, some of the rooms you took us into, they're literally museums. You see this going on back from the 1800s.
Yeah, we are not even allowed to clean them. You saw the dust on the bottles. It's amazing, and that was what made me get into this wine business. The mystery of the wineries in Jerez is like part of the history, the mystery, and all the smell when you go into the bodega is quite unique. It's not like in the other parts of the world. It's very special, and you can find this just in Jerez.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic. So let's go back to your role here. Can you give us some insight into how much of your work is focused on the creation of these wines versus the management of casks, and especially when it comes to supplying the Scotch whisky industry?
Yeah, personally, so my role is I would say like 85-90% is I focus on casks business, and the other I give a hand with some projects developing wines for the company and try to give a hand, but that's why we have a team. And right now my role is focused on the cask business. As I said, it's also a winemaking job. You might think that it's something different, but we need to take care of the wine that's inside the casks, isn't it? Because it's top quality wine too, and we need to keep it like that. So we need to watch all those wines and give the best we have to our clients. In this case, I don't know, you come from Scotland, we have many, obviously the biggest part is Scotland, but we also have clients from all around the world, and we try to give the best we have to them. And that's a lot of work in the cellar, planning, and we need to be quick when we receive the casks, and we don't want them empty in the cellar for a long time. And also with the plants, working with the appellation, with the DO to register their cask in the sherry cask certification, because all this is controlled by we need to give the top quality standards to our products, and that's what we are doing.
And when we talk about the Scotch whisky industry, how many companies are you dealing with? And I know some of the time this can be quite a secretive sort of relationship, and I know you can't say too much about it, but as a percentage, and are there any of the big ones that you can name and talk about a little bit?
Yeah, well, I'm the person in contact with this, because at the end I'm the person that you have to contact to if you want to make businesses with. So I'm lucky. I know many distilleries, and we work with a big part of them. Maybe, I don't know, 70% of the big names in Scotland, and directly or from some other ways through cooperages. So at the end, because we are one of the biggest wineries in Jerez, and we have a huge volume of seasoning for the clients. Always all respecting the quality, but yeah, and names, you can guess some of them probably, but yeah, the more famous and we are proud of this relationship is maybe the Dalmor. They mention us in the label, and yeah, we had a very good relationship for many years, and we are friends. Part of the businesses we have.
Yeah.
Every time they come here, it's
Well, it's cool. I noticed the letter that you guys actually have from the Dalmore distillery.
From
very cool.
Many years back. We had the archives, so yeah, you saw them before, and yeah, we have many letters, and like not just with Dalmore. It's like in terms of the whiskey business, we have many letters about that. And with the Dalmore, is very cool. Every time they came here a few months ago, and they released a new product, the Curation series, sherry cask, and aged in González Vallas, with a set of 3 bottles, and it was lovely. They released the product here, and they made an event, and yeah, it's next level.
Nice.
And the people, the thing is very good. So we try to work closely with the clients. So it's not just we see some and we forget. We know each other, and we consider each other friends, because also we in the daily work, if they have any concerns or if they have questions, that's my role too, to answer to the questions they might have about the process or seasoning, or maybe they want new ideas or the projects. So that's also part of my role.
And how in depth do they go with you? I mean, for example, you're obviously looking at the wood very closely, but then when it comes to sherry as well, obviously the particular types, Oloroso, Fino, like how in depth do you go with them with regards to that?
When we receive, sometimes we are part of that of the decision making. Maybe for the new project they want a different profile of flavor, so the first thing they think about is the oak, obviously, and then in terms of sherry, I give my support. Maybe they try, we have tastings, they try what they have, or we can offer in terms of wines, different amount of sugar, different blends, and it's like a tailor suit. We are tailors, so if they request a certain amount of grams of sugar per liter, we can do it. Different types of wine profiles. So that's how deep we go. And also we follow the process. Every few months we analyze the wine inside, and yeah, we make sure that everything is going properly. And also we have coopers here and at González Vallas, checking not just our casks, also the casks that belong to the clients. For the seasoning, so we make sure they don't leak or they don't have weird aromas, smells around the cask. Everything is clean, so it's a lot of work, but yeah, that's how we go. And then the final release, also for the final client, we try to think about the future and maybe about the blends. Also, yeah, they give us some samples, and yeah, that's how deep we go sometimes.
And on that point, we talk about Quercus Roba and Quercus Alba being used. European wood-wise, we're obviously in the middle of Spain right now. How much European oak is being used versus American oak, would you say, right now within the industry?
In sherry,
yeah,
it's almost everything is American, but so all the casks are like 95% is American oak, and that's because in the past Jerez was looking for a specific profile of flavor, and they decided to go with this type of oak. But for seasoning, for the distilleries, we have both, maybe half and half right now, but it changes along the year depending on the distillery, the client. But right now it's very equal.
Let me ask you this. Most people listening right now are going to be whiskey drinkers, right?
Yeah.
It's a whiskey podcast.
Yeah.
How would you encourage them to go out and try some sherries?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure they enjoy their glass of whiskeys that have been aged in sherry cask, but they have passion for that already, so they should go further and try the sherry and discover why gives this special touch to the whiskey, you know. And I know it's a Jerez. Sherry is a unique wine, and maybe the newbies struggle a bit with it. But once you discover it and you try it, and if you are really into the wine, field, this is very unique. Even when you have your meal, that you can make amazing pairings because the taste is so special.
Oh, yeah. I've been drinking a load since I've been over here. Like, one of my favorites right now is like sardines and olives with a nice dry, like fino.
Yeah. Awesome.
We were doing last night a big Pedro Jimenez with like a chocolate dessert.
Yeah. You can use Pedro Jimenez with you don't even need to cook it. Yeah, pour it on top of a vanilla ice cream.
Yeah, so good.
But yeah, it's for me it's amazing, and there's a sherry for every occasion. Since before you have the meal, during the meal, as you before you go to bed.
Before you go to bed.
You can
when you wake up.
I mean,
too much?
No, that's too much. I wake up already early at 6. I just want coffee. But
Let's chat a little bit, if we can, about sort of innovation and what's happening within sherry. If there's anything you guys can talk about here that's maybe experimental, sort of groundbreaking, that you're currently doing. Is that being driven by the sherry industry? Is that maybe being driven by what you've been asked for from Scotland?
All the innovation we are doing here is more focused on the wine, because as I mentioned, we're a wine company, but also affects to the seasoning, because everything is related. In terms of sherry cask, and I'm very proud of it, is the appellation is really taking care of the sherry name right now. It's like there's no way we can cheat doing this. They control everything. The wines we use, the time we season, and that's a good thing for the client, because we are using technology right now. So every single cask we season has a QR code where you can scan it with your phone, and then you see the information about the cooperage, the type of wine, the winery, and the time has been seasoned for. So that's a good thing, and it's something new. We started a few years ago, and that's something new. And in terms of wine, so the DO is changing so fast, also the market, and we are trying to be adapted to it. There are many medium and small wineries making great things, and González Vallas as one of the main wineries in Jerez. It's a economical engine, and so it's we need to do the same and keep the pace. And we are also bringing new products and new ideas to the sherry concept.
And then you showed us around the Nomad whiskey you guys are doing, which is a really interesting concept. So you're taking whiskies from Ireland, Scotland, and then aging them in Jerez, right?
Yeah, that's for now. Yeah, we have both. The idea is to keep growing and bring from more countries in the world, because all of them are different. And but we do the opposite. The distilleries take our casks to their places, and they age their whiskey. So we are bringing the whiskey and we age in our casks. And obviously there's a huge difference, because the environment is completely different here, the temperature, the humidity.
Yeah.
So the aging process goes in a different way. And it's going well. It's growing very quickly, and we are proud of it.
And you're involved in that process as well, obviously.
And looking, So,
dipping your toe in
we'll,
whiskey making.
We will
I
talk
like
in a few, maybe in 1-2 years.
Yeah.
We will have a new one, but I cannot say anything else.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's been great, man. I mean, thank you so much for taking us around today. It was amazing to see not just the facility, but you guys have got a restaurant on site.
Yeah.
You've got a hotel here as well. Just absolutely stunning. And I'm looking forward to returning the favor when you come to Speyside in a couple of months.
A couple of months.
Yeah,
I will be there.
And Salvador, if people want to find out about Gonzalez Baez website, you guys are on social, you do all that kind of good stuff, right?
Also on Instagram, I think we are Tio Pepe Wines. Yeah, so
fantastic, man. Well, Salvador, thank you so much for coming on the show and for showing us around today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And thank you for coming. And anytime you want to come back. And also the rest of the people that are listening to us, they are invited to come. We are very welcoming.
Which I can attest to that 100%. I definitely recommend it. Bye, Salvador. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Oh, Mitch, I'm so jealous of that. Sounded like it was a great interview, but also I had these pangings of wanting to go back to Jerez, and I had such an amazing experience. I'm sure for you as well, and we'll talk about that in a second. But like for me, the last time I was in Jerez, I was there with the White Mackay team. Our good friend Daz actually had helped kind of pull it all together, so it was brilliant. Actually, it was the last time me and Daz got to hang out, and it was such a laugh. Ricky Crawford was there, Alistair Mingus was there, a few other people from all around the world. Oh, it was banter. Like it was honestly, I had tears running down my face, because it was the first time like we'd got like a really good group of Scottish people, like with some amazing banter on the trip, but more than that, like the sounds and the smells of walking around the town of Jerez, the bodegas themselves. There's just a smell in the air of the wines. It's amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I loved about it, the first time I went to Jerez, it was literally like in and out. It was an ambassador trip, and we literally had maybe 7 or 8 hours there. We only went to a cooperage, and then that was it. We were back out again. So this time I did want to dig a lot deeper into it. We stayed there for 3 days, I think it was. But yeah, to your point, mate, I love it. I love the fact that you're going to a bar, you're sitting outside, and you look around, and everyone is either drinking like a small beer or a sherry.
Yep.
And most of the time it is sherry that everyone's drinking. You never see that in Scotland. You don't go to a bar in Scotland and everyone's sitting drinking Scotch whisky. I mean, arguably it's a little bit higher ABV, but we don't get into it as much as what I saw in Jerez. And I love that whole Spanish culture as well. It's been a long time since I've spent any serious time in Spain. I love that kind of eating late, just being on the street. Again, at lunchtime, we would be sitting around and I'd look and see what everyone else was drinking. Everyone's drinking alcohol in the middle of the day. I'm like, yes,
it's brilliant.
Love this. So relaxed, so chilled.
Actually, as we speak right now, my sister Angie she lives in Barcelona now, and she does all these tours with a partner. They've got podcasts. It's hysterical where they kind of do like these walking tours around the city, and I'm like, you should go to Jerez and do this, because that's exactly the kind of place where you would want somebody to kind of give you those guided tours around. But it's funny because she's staying here and she's jet lagged, like just because of the time difference, and it's almost working in everyone's advantage because she's so used to eating late and drinking late and all the rest of it. Like everything's kind of all over the place, but that's it, right? And it's what's also really interesting when you're in places like that is it's so family orientated. Even though people are out drinking and all the rest of it, like you can be sitting at a restaurant at 11 o'clock at night, and the table next to you will have your, the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old and their 8-year-old just sitting at the table up at that time, because it's almost encouraged that everybody participates, and it's, it's not like you leave the kids at home and you go out. Everybody goes out for dinner. Everybody goes out for tapas. Everybody goes out and has sherry, and the kids play and kind of chat away next to you, where the adults are enjoying adult time. It feels definitely much more like a good balance of eating and drinking together. Whereas in Scotland, you go for dinner and then you go out drinking. And in Spain, especially in the south of Spain, they don't do that. They tend to eat and drink later at night, but everything's done collaboratively and with thought put into it. So it's a really, I enjoy that quality of life aspect of eating and drinking like that.
So Joe, obviously my wife. She threatened to leave me the other day because of my disgusting habits. I couldn't believe it. I was so shocked. I almost choked on my own toenails.
Oh my God. You know, Mitch, I've actually lost a little bit of weight by wearing bread in my head. It's a new loaf hat diet that I'm trying.
That's good. No one sent me any jokes this week. It was kind of disappointing. Have you had any jokes sent to you?
Not sent to me, but I do have another cracker if you want to hear it. I was walking through a graveyard the other day. I saw a typo on a headstone. It's a grave mistake. Awful, right?
Mate, I'm not going to buy anything with Velcro. It's a total rip-off.
Oh, do we still have listeners? I don't know. It's a mystery. It's a mystery.
No, that's enough for the jokes today, I think.
I think so.
Well, I think that was a good roundup of sherry in however many minutes. We don't know yet because we haven't put the interviews in yet. But yeah, I think it's like, honestly, it was interesting because I've been out and about. We just did Whiskey Talks last week in Edinburgh. We had 80 people there. Shout out to everyone that came along to Whiskey Talks. So many people from the trade and so many whiskey people were there. And they obviously had seen that I'd been in Jerez. And it was amazing to me how many Scotch people still, or people within the whiskey industry, still haven't made that sort of pilgrimage to Jerez to check it out. And I think it's something that if you're a whiskey drinker and say you've done all the whiskey making regions in Scotland, you're looking for something else to do, 100%, jump on a plane, go to Jerez, super easy to get there. You get to Seville, do a couple of days there. The train is like an hour away, and the people there are so friendly as well. And it feels like it just feels so local, right? I think that's to your point earlier, Nicholas. It's like you see these families going around. You see these like small bars, like tapas bars, and it's just it's so cheap as well. I couldn't believe how cheap it was. It made me realize like how much we get ripped off in the UK, and I think I can speak the same for New York as well because the prices were outrageous last time I was there.
The only other thing I would add is that I can't actually think. I mean, I was trying to do this earlier. I can't think of any other industries that are so intrinsically linked and so further apart in actually what we do.
Sorry, mate, how are they linked?
Intrinsically.
Easy for you to say.
Intrinsically. Well,
No,
boy. Intrinsically linked. Far apart. Sing it, Mitch. No, all joking aside, think about it. Like, so for us, like, and it's hundreds of years in the making, which is pretty cool as well, right? So even think about this, and so at Shibui, in Niigata, we use Oloroso sherry for part of our maturation for our whiskies from Grain Select and Pure Malt, and our Pure Malt 10. But then in Okinawa, we have our 15 and 18-year-old are both matured in Fino and Manzanilla sherry cask. So it's even what has become something that started in Scotland is now something that we use for other world whiskies. And we do that with Shibui ourselves. So it's still amazing how these amazing wines have such influence into the entire whiskey industry, all born of this relationship specifically with the UK and how it affected Scotch whiskies. So it's pretty cool.
And I think as well, sort of final thought, for me, I would always go around talking about how the Scotch whisky industry is keeping the sherry industry alive, right? And I think as Scotch whisky drinkers, we all kind of think like that. But going around these bodegas, they actually are selling a bucket load of sherry.
100%.
They're doing all right. Like they are making some good money from selling their casks to us over here, but it's not the be all and end all of their business, And that was what was the eye opener for me.
I think that's the thing. When you're in, you kind of get told that a little bit in Scotland. I remember being told if it wasn't for the Scotch whisky industry, the sherry industry would be over. And I'm like, it's the other way around a little bit. If it wasn't for the sherry industry, there are a lot of Scotch whisky brands that wouldn't exist with the flavour profiles that you now see today. So, like I said, it's that one can't exist without the other. We're fortunate that a lot of these relationships with our distilleries and these bodegas are really strong. And together we can continue to make some amazing sherries and amazing whiskies.
And on that note, we're done. We're out.
We are. Indeed, we shall see you next week. Tune in.
Thank you for listening, guys. What are we doing next week? We don't know. We do. We're not going to tell you.
We're going to do port. No, we're not. You never know.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for listening. Great to have you on board here. Check us out on Instagram, Not Another Whiskey Podcast. Sign up for our newsletters, and please give us a little review on whatever platform that you're listening to us on. It makes a huge difference to the show, and it allows us to continue to create content like this for you. So until next time, guys, thank you very much, and see you later.
See you later. Bye.